guys, it's Bryony. I am back from Dubai. As you can see, I've got some lovely faded henna on my hands. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen all the pictures from the deserts and stuff. And it was really great. I had a fantastic time there. Really great to decompress, not get depressed, decompress and, you know, just have a break for a while before the craziness of Christmas, which is coming up. Speaking of which, how are you guys doing your Christmas shopping? Are you all done? I think I've only got about 2 more presents left, which is good. And I'll be doing a video on like what I bought people on my vlog channel as well, so be sure to check that out. Link is always down below and at the end of these videos. The other thing I want to say is I've got some new lights in my bedroom now. I've switched my bulbs in my bedroom lights to daylight bulbs to see if it would help kind of like with my energy levels and stuff, but it's also working out really well for this camera from what I can see looking in the viewfinder. So, you know, hopefully help with the quality too. But anyway, getting on into today's video. This is a video that was actually requested quite a while ago and has sat on my list on my phone for some time because I've been debating what the best way to approach it is. And that is the video on how to help girls who are terrified of starting their periods. So this is more for girls who haven't got any experience of getting their periods yet, but who know maybe that they're going to get it. So this is not the same as not knowing you're going to have a period and then having, you know, getting it and finding blood in your pants and being like, oh my god, am I dying? No, this is more for girls who are somewhat prepared and do know it's going to happen, but just have a real fear of it. This is my tips and advice for how to deal or help someone out in your life who is in this situation. The first thing I do want to mention though is that this was absolutely not me. I was always really excited to get my period. I remember being like, when is it gonna happen? Come on, I want to be a woman. Because that's just how I viewed my period. I thought, you know, I go from being a child to being a woman when I got my period. This is also a little bit more true for me because I was 14 when I started my period, and I think I was the last girl in my entire class, in my year group at my school. So I'd already been well prepared from hearing what the other girls were saying about it. I had a lot of knowledge about periods. I'd learned about them when I was 8, I think, the first time I heard about them. And then just sort of built on that ever since up until when I actually started it. So when I started my periods, there was no real great shock about it other than, you know, I wasn't expecting when it happened. And it happened on a camping trip as well, as I've mentioned before, so that was quite interesting. But otherwise, I was well prepared for it. So for me, it was never a terrifying thing. I think another factor that came into this, because actually, interestingly enough, I hated the idea of growing up when I was younger. I wanted to be young forever. Fun fact, I actually had my 10th birthday as a 9th birthday again because I didn't want to turn 10. I didn't want to go into double digits. So yeah, that's how much I really did not want to grow up. But I loved children and I was an only child. I used to beg my parents, please have another baby for me, or foster or adopt, I don't care. I just want a sibling kind of person here. They never did. But for me, I loved kids and I knew I wanted to have kids, and I knew that in order for me to have children, I'd need to get my period. So in that respect, I wasn't worried about getting my period because it was kind of like, oh my god, I could have the children now. Obviously, I didn't go ahead and have kids when I was 14. I'm 21, I still don't have any kids. But yeah, that was kind of like my mindset to it. So for me, it was never a scary thing because I'd always wanted kids and I'd always associated periods with children. And that was something comforting to me. So I just thought I'd mention that in case your friend, relative, sibling, whoever is the person that's really scared of periods, has a like for children. That's something that can be quite useful, is to tie it in to the period side of things and say, hey, you know, if you want kids in the future, this is part of it. It's part of becoming a woman or growing up or however you want to word it. And you will know the best way to word it for them, because for some people, the idea of becoming a woman when you get your period is just not a thing. Some people don't even identify as being female who have periods. So it's very much going to be personal to that person how you bring it up to them. But that's the main thing, is to personalize how you raise the kind of period issue to that person. And as I said, because I was so fond of kids, that was a good link for me. But my first official tip is education. We have a fear of the unknown as human beings. So if we don't know what periods are, or if we have a lot of questions about it, that's going to create a lot more fear than if you have a good idea of what to expect. So the best thing to do if you've got a relative or someone who is really nervous about starting their period is to talk to them in more detail about it, especially if you yourself are familiar with having periods, to say, you know, this is what we go through, this is roughly how often it's going to be. There are loads of resources and tools online. I mean, I have tons of videos talking about periods and what they are on here. here that you can show them to basically get to them, hey, this isn't a really big deal, it's not that scary, and it's something that a lot of people go through. In fact, half the population on planet Earth go through this. It's just a part of your body changing through puberty. The more detail you can go into, usually the better, but again, you will know that individual themselves. For example, some children who have autism or who are on the autistic spectrum really don't like this concept of change, so it's going to be really difficult to get through to them that, you know, this is going to happen, because it's not something you can stop, it is going to happen. So the more prepared you can make them, the better it's going to be. But again, you will know how much detail you can give at each stage and what the best way to feed it to them will be. I personally don't know many people who are autistic or on the autistic spectrum, so you as a parent understandably will know your child best. So do bear that in mind, and you're probably getting it right. But just to introduce it in little bits that you know they're going to be able to handle is probably the best way. My second tip is to try and make it as fun as possible. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. One is to create sort of like a first period starter kit. So when I started using, not started my period, but started using cloth pads, I bought this little cloth pad starter kit that came in this really fun like peace sign bag, and you could get something similar to this or a little wash bag, but basically put in a whole load of little of things like pads, maybe a tampon or two, or a menstrual cup or cloth pads, whatever. If you've had a conversation with your child beforehand, you might know better or not what they want to start with, whether they want to try out disposables, whether they want to use cloth pads, or whether they want to try both. Most kids usually will want to try both at the beginning, so maybe get one of each is a good idea for a little starter kit, but also add some things in there like a little bar of chocolate, maybe some nail varnish or an eye mask or some like face cream, anything like that. Face mask, anything kind of fun and pampering if that's what your child is into, or child friend, whoever, you know, is into. Those sorts of things kind of help make the experience more fun and create this sort of period party idea. Of course, you could have a period party too, but a lot of girls don't really want to have that much focus on them, especially if they're quite nervous about it. So this is sort of like a mini version, but it's definitely something to bear in mind. If you can make periods as fun as possible, it's probably going to take out some of the fear. And my third tip for helping people who are terrified of starting their periods is to make sure they are fully prepared for when it does start, i.e. having emergency period kits prepared. Those of us who have periods know that we probably have emergency pads and tampons or whatever, cups, all over the place. I certainly have at least a spare menstrual cup and a pad and pain medication in my handbag, underwear, you know, and I think in all my bags actually I have an emergency kit of some kind, so I know there's always going to be something there. Helping your friend, relative, child to be prepared for this is probably one of the best things you can do, because then they're going to feel more reassured that if it does start while they're out at school or out with their friends or away somewhere, then they are fully prepared and they have something there that they can go to. The ideal sort of emergency kit would be just a little zip baggie like this size, and having some ibuprofen or paracetamol, so some pain relief, a spare pair of underwear, maybe one or two, and at least 1 or 2 pads to be prepared. It's unlikely that they're going to be using menstrual cups or tampons that quickly into their period, but they might be, so if that's the case, then maybe you could put one in there. Menstrual cups is a little more tricky with, because usually you only have one menstrual cup, so it's just if you happen to be carrying that with you, but certainly you could put a pad, whether it's cloth or disposable, into a kit like that, so they've always got something to be prepared for. But ultimately, the best way to get through to someone who is terrified of starting their periods is to tell them how it's just a normal, natural process that we all go through, and to speak openly to them about periods in general, including all the things that I've talked about in this video. If you can make it as fun as possible, that will usually also help, but a lot of the time people just want reassurance that what they're going through is normal, and they might have questions about what you do when you're out and about and you start unexpectedly or anything like this, and having frank conversations about maybe what you do could really help with this. As you guys know, I'm also a YouTuber who talks about all things periods, so if they need any more reassurance, feel free to show them my channel. I like to speak openly about this stuff, and I try to make it as friendly and, you know, informal and comforting as possible, because hey, it's something we all just have to go through. Mother Nature. But I hope you found this video helpful, guys. Do let me know if you used any of these tips, or if any of you were terrified when you started your period and what helped you out with that. Leave them down in the comments below and I'll be sure to take a look through them. Thank you for watching, guys. Do please subscribe, and don't forget you can get cloth pads and menstrual cups from my website Precious Stars down below, and also little wet bags with fun prints like this, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.